Hi, everybody. I'm Marty Dunn. It's good to see everyone again.
And I'm Dave Lynn, and it's time for our SEC update. We wanted to bring folks up to date on a few things that have been going on at the SEC over the last few months. The first topic I'm going to talk about is COVID-19 risk factors. Risk factors have really been shouldering a lot of the burden in the disclosure category for issuers because that's the main way people have been communicating the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on their operations and their financial condition. And really, the way risk factors come up is in a variety of ways. First, if a company is relying on the March 25th order the commission put out that would extend the issuer's deadline for a variety of reports, one of the conditions there is to actually file an 8K that includes a risk factor disclosure about how COVID-19 is affecting the company if material. Another situation where a risk factor may be appropriate is if a company is doing an offering and needs to update its prospectus or file an 8K to incorporate that by reference. And perhaps the most common is really in the context of periodic reports, annual reports on 10K and quarterly reports on 10Q, and their issuers have been addressing COVID-19 risks in that context as well. The SEC's staff, the Division of Corporation Finance staff, put out some guidance back on March 25th in CF Disclosure Guidance topic number 9 that really encouraged issuers to consider updating their risk factors among other areas of their disclosure to address the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. And there, the staff set forth a whole list of questions that one might consider, which really is a good template for drafting your risk factor disclosure and coming up with ideas for things that you may need to address. The staff also said you may need to update things. So it may not be a one and done situation here where you put out a risk factor about COVID-19, but then may need to come back and update that as time goes on. And Marty and I've talked about this before, but one of the main considerations in drafting risk factors is really avoiding having hypothetical risk factor disclosure where you're not talking about the actual effects, but only talking about the possible effects. And that's been a challenge for issuers because some of the effects have not been fully realized, but they have had individual effects here and there that they need to talk about in the context of risk factor disclosure. In terms of what issues
on that topic, one thing I've seen people doing is very much embracing the unknowns. Saying this is what we see so far. Here are things we can't possibly know, and embracing them instead of trying to stay silent and acting like they don't know something. They seem to be more assertive on that point.
Yeah, that's a real fixture, I think, of a lot of the risk factors we see is just the notion that we don't know what we don't know, and a lot depends on factors outside of our knowledge and control, including the duration of the pandemic, the measures taken to address the pandemic, and other considerations along those lines. Some of the things people have been disclosing in the risk factors include the impact on their facilities, on their production, on their retail and wholesale facilities, on travel and logistics, the impact on your business of not having people able to travel or having people working from home, the impact on the control environment, including things like cybersecurity risks that might arise, the impact of the global capital markets on the company's ability to raise capital, concerns about impairments, concerns about going concern, those types of issues, as well as just the impact on your business plan overall, whether you may have to scale back investment or change your strategy as a result of the pandemic and the aftermath of the pandemic in terms of how people may have to alter their business models going forward. And I think just in terms of the key takeaways here, really there's no one size fits all approach to the COVID-19 risk factors. It really has to be tailored to the company's individual circumstances and address the things that they're seeing. It has to be also not hypothetical. It has to be grounded in the actuality of what's happening.
Well, I just wanted to raise everyone's attention to something that's outside of COVID-19 for a change of pace a little bit. The commission put out a very important release on March 4th, the harmonization release. It goes into a lot of exemptive offerings. And the comment period ends June 1. And there's a lot in there that's not going to drive people to comment, like they'll look back on the bad actor disqualifications. It's not going to get people going. But there is a great deal of discussion in there about integration. And it proposes 4 safe harbors and a general principle to apply outside of the safe harbors. And it builds off of the '07 guidance. And it's really useful and it's very well put together. And I wanted to bring it to everyone's attention because I think it's important that people look at it, particularly people who are in the space of ongoing exempt offerings, using the internet offerings, and looking at how the safe harbors and the general principles work, particularly in interacting between general solicitation offerings and non-general solicitation offerings, and see if when the rubber hits the road, they actually work, and work it through your details and find ways to comment that can help the staff and the commission come out with better final product on this. And so I think it's a wonderful release to read. I think it's important to read, and I really encourage everyone to comment on it. So with that, I think I will say it's good to see everyone. We miss everybody. I miss you, Dave. And
miss you too.
And it's good to see your face. And who knew we had the same background?
Imagine that.
Thanks, everybody.